For 16 years, she waited. Through court delays, failed appeals, and the silence that followed every unopened letter, she held on. Through birthdays spent alone, through holidays filled with empty chairs, she never once gave up. Every phone call, every visit, every dollar earned, she gave it all to one man. The world told her to move on. Her friends stopped asking. Even her own family grew tired of warning her. But she stayed. For 16 years, she stayed. And just weeks after he returned home, she was gone. A closed casket, a death certificate with more questions than answers, a medical file flagged for follow-up, a whispered tip from someone still behind bars. The official report told one story, but buried inside sealed envelopes, old medical charts, and prison logs might be a very different one. Because what if the moment she waited for was the very thing that ended her life? And what if the person she waited for knew that all along? Before we go any further, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. She waited. He returned. And within weeks, she was dead. But who was she really? And the man she stood by for 16 years, was he the same man who walked out of that prison gate? Or someone entirely different? Because something doesn't add up. She was healthy, cautious. She worked in medicine. She knew the risks. So how did she end up infected? Was it love gone wrong? A sudden act of rage? Or something far more methodical? Something that took years to execute? He claimed he didn't know, that it was an accident, but the timeline is tight. Too tight. There are records, there are letters, there are things she didn't tell anyone, and things he told only one other person, behind bars. So what really happened between the night he came home and the day she died? On screen. Was this a tragic accident or murder by design? Why didn't she know he was HIV positive? And who else knew the truth all along? And maybe the better question is, why did it take 16 years for the plan to begin? Maya Turner lived a life most would call uneventful. She kept to herself. She worked hard. 2 jobs, one at a nursing home, the other cleaning offices after hours. Quiet days, quiet nights, no children, no vacations, just routine. But there was one constant in Maya's life. Terry Turner. They'd been sweethearts since high school, the kind of couple that seemed made to last. Friends said Maya talked about Terry like he was her entire future, that nothing, not distance, not time, not even a prison sentence could change that. In 2006, Terry was arrested for armed robbery. The story made local headlines. 2 suspects fled the scene, only one was caught. Terry claimed he was innocent, said a childhood friend set him up, cut a deal to avoid time. Maya believed him without question. She stood beside him through the trial. And when he was sentenced to 20 years, she made a promise that she'd wait. And she did. Every letter answered, every call accepted, every Sunday, without fail. She showed up at visitation, dressed modestly, a smile in her bag, even when her heart was breaking. 16 years passed, and in all that time, Maya never moved on. No dating, no distance, just belief. Belief in the boy she met at 17. Belief that the man behind bars was still the one she'd loved. But for those closest to her, something felt off even before his release. One friend said, "She always said Terry was her world. But the Terry that came out wasn't the Terry she put in." He came home quieter, harder. He didn't talk about prison much, didn't talk about anything really. He picked up habits Maya didn't recognize. He kept to himself. He kept secrets. And Maya, she adjusted. She always did. But those around her saw the change. There were fewer smiles, shorter conversations, and questions she wouldn't answer. Why did she stop going to church? Why did she start missing work? And why did she schedule a doctor's appointment and tell no one what it was for? No one knew it yet, but Maya Turner was already in danger. And the man she had waited 16 years for may have known exactly what he brought back into her home. In November 2022, after 16 years behind bars, Terry Turner walked free. A legal technicality, something buried deep in court procedure, won him a retrial, and with it, his release. Maya Turner was waiting outside the prison gates. She'd spent more than a decade fighting for that moment. Petitions, letters, money she didn't have. She gave it all. And when he stepped out, she ran to him like no time had passed. 3 days later, Maya hosted a small gathering at her home. Close friends, neighbors, co-workers, balloons, home-cooked food, a banner over the door that read, "Welcome home." But almost everyone who attended noticed something odd. Terry didn't smile much. He avoided eye contact. He didn't thank anyone. He barely even looked at Maya. One guest said the whole thing felt wrong, that Terry seemed detached, cold, like he wasn't really there. In the days that followed, it only got stranger. Terry didn't look for work. He barely left the house. He stayed in the guest room, kept his phone face down, disappeared for hours at a time. And Maya, she didn't say a word, not at first, but 2 weeks after the party, everything changed. Maya collapsed at work. Fever, chills, dizziness. She was rushed to the hospital. Doctors suspected a viral infection. The usual tests were ordered, but the results weren't usual. Maya tested positive for HIV. She was stunned, silent. Her records from just 2 years earlier were negative. She hadn't been with anyone but Terry. She confronted him that night. No yelling, just a single question. "Terry, how could you?" He didn't deny the diagnosis, but he didn't admit anything either. He looked her in the eye and said, "Must have been someone else." Maya didn't argue. She didn't cry. She went to her room, shut the door, and didn't speak to him for the rest of the night. The next morning, she made a quiet visit to the police station. She filed an incident report, not for assault, not for exposure, but for suspicious medical harm. 3 days later, Maya Turner vanished. She never showed up for work. Her phone went unanswered, and when police returned to the house to follow up, Terry was alone. He told them she left, but the car was still in the driveway, her purse still in the closet, and her toothbrush still damp. 3 days after Maya Turner was last seen, her car turned up, abandoned at a gas station 50 miles from her home. The tank was nearly full. The keys were still in the ignition. Her purse sat on the passenger seat, her phone in the center console. There were no signs of struggle, no fingerprints other than hers. The security footage at the station showed nothing. No Maya, no Terry. No one approaching the vehicle at all during the hours it appeared on site. It was like the car had been dropped off, quietly and deliberately. Detectives began tracing the last movements her phone made. Cell tower data showed something unexpected. After she filed the report at the police station, her phone never left town. Not until the night it was found. But what was most troubling was that none of her accounts had been accessed since. No calls, no texts, no transactions. Maya Turner had vanished, without a trace. Detectives went back to the hospital records. They needed clarity, something in black and white. There were no signs of past partners, no record of any other sexual relationships during Terry Turner's incarceration. Her yearly physicals were all clean, consistently tested, always negative, which left them with one question: where and when did she contract the virus? The answer would come from a place no one expected, inside a locked cabinet in the state prison's medical unit. Records from 2014 revealed a small outbreak, contained within a single cell block. At the time, it was labeled as inmate transmitted. The state never went public. No investigation was opened, no charges filed. But buried deep in those files was Terry Turner's name. He'd refused multiple HIV screenings, denied testing, cited religious reasons. When staff pushed, he became aggressive. He wasn't alone in doing that. Several inmates refused screening that year, some of whom had documented relationships behind bars. But Terry's file stood out. A series of medical notes flagged him for inconsistent behavior, restricted visitation with certain inmates, and a phrase circled in red ink: suspected sexual activity, unconfirmed. Police started digging deeper. They found something else. 2 former inmates, released within the last 5 years, agreed to speak. Not on camera, not for the record, but what they described matched up. They said Terry Turner wasn't just involved with someone in prison. He was careful, secretive, but not subtle. One of the men remembered seeing him late at night, slipping notes under another inmate's door. Another said Terry had a nickname behind the walls, that everyone in the block knew who he was close with, and who he wasn't. They described hushed conversations in the yard, favors exchanged, guards turning a blind eye, and one detail both men shared: that Terry had access to things other inmates didn't. Not drugs, not money, but blood. Someone remembered him helping out in the infirmary, briefly, before being reassigned. The reason? He was caught going through locked storage. He told the nurse on duty he was just looking for gauze. But that same nurse filed an internal report the next day. Not for theft, but for something more vague. Security concern, potential biohazard breach. The report went nowhere. No follow-up. Just a signature. And silence. Until now. Because suddenly, everything Maya feared, everything she tried to report, was starting to make sense. And police were beginning to see what she never had time to prove. As detectives built their timeline, a new pattern began to emerge. One that reached beyond Maya Turner. 2 women, unrelated to Maya, unknown to each other, came forward after seeing a local news segment about her disappearance. Both had dated Terry Turner briefly following his release. Both had tested positive for HIV within months, and both claimed Terry never told them anything. What had looked like an isolated tragedy was now widening into something else. A trail, a pattern, a possible motive. Detectives reviewed Maya's recent activity again, this time focusing on her digital footprint. What they found changed everything. One day before she vanished, Maya had contacted a civil attorney. Phone records confirmed it. She had scheduled a meeting for the following week. The purpose: to begin filing a civil suit for intentional exposure to HIV. But there was something else. A voicemail. Left on the lawyer's office line at 11:42 p.m. the night before she disappeared. It lasted only 7 seconds. The audio was muffled, her voice barely above a whisper. But the words were unmistakable. If anything happens to me, it's him. That recording, saved by chance, became the final piece investigators needed to reclassify her case, from missing person to potential homicide. 3 days later, during a search of nearby woods, officers uncovered a partially buried trash bag. Inside, a set of women's clothing, a bottle of prescription medication, HIV treatment. The label bore the name Terry Turner, and wrapped tightly in the center, a blood-stained bedsheet. The blood matched Maya's DNA. So did the clothing. The pills, unopened, weeks old, matched the prescription issued to Terry while he was still on parole. When confronted, Terry denied everything. He claimed Maya left voluntarily, that she was overwhelmed, that she vanished because she was ashamed of her diagnosis, not because of anything he did. But when asked how her blood ended up in the woods, wrapped in one of his prescriptions, he said nothing. Not denial, not explanation, just silence. And when investigators pointed out that he never reported her missing, not to police, not to family, not even to her workplace, he blinked once, then said, "She said she needed space." But the evidence told a different story. Maya Turner didn't walk away. She didn't leave town. She was preparing to fight back, and she was silenced before she ever had the chance. The investigation was nearing its end, but there were still unanswered questions. Chief among them: when did Maya Turner die? The answer came from the autopsy. Forensic analysis confirmed that Maya had been dead approximately 48 hours before Terry Turner ever told anyone she was missing, which meant the story he told police about her walking out, needing space, leaving on her own, wasn't just misleading. It was impossible. The timeline unraveled even further when investigators subpoenaed Terry's online search history. In the weeks leading up to Maya's death, he had searched, "How long does HIV take to kill someone untreated? HIV and stress, can it be fatal? What happens if someone files charges for HIV transmission?" But it was the emails that turned suspicion into certainty. Pulled from archived prison records, the messages were bitter, obsessive, and all directed at one person, Maya. In one message, he wrote, 16 years gone, she promised me everything and gave me nothing. Another read, she left me in that cell. I won't let her forget it. And buried in one chilling sentence, some pain doesn't leave a mark, but it stays forever. That pain was planned. On the witness stand, a former cellmate of Terry's stepped forward. He wasn't offered a deal. He wasn't seeking attention. He just wanted the truth out. And what he said in court stunned the room into silence. He used to say, "I'll give her something she can't live with." The jury heard every word. They saw the emails. They heard the voicemail Maya left before she vanished. They reviewed the medical evidence, the timeline, the stained sheet, the discarded pills, the search history. And they saw Terry Turner for what he truly was, not a wrongfully convicted man seeking peace, but a man who carried bitterness out of prison like a weapon. After 2 days of deliberation, the verdict was read: guilty of second-degree murder, guilty of criminal transmission of HIV. No emotion, no reaction, just a stare, empty, distant, unbothered. Justice in its final form didn't come quickly. It didn't come easily, but it came. And for Maya Turner, the woman who gave up 16 years, only to lose her life weeks after she got it back, it was the ending she never got to see. She gave him everything. 16 years of her life, every visit, every letter, every dollar she didn't have. She defended him when no one else would. She believed in his innocence, long after the world stopped listening. Maya Turner waited 16 years for a man she loved, only for him to sentence her to death. And what she thought was devotion, he saw as opportunity. He didn't just take her life, he dismantled it, quietly, methodically, piece by piece, until nothing was left but a voicemail, a trash bag in the woods, and the memory of a woman who thought love could save him. Show photo of Maya smiling, her eyes warm, alive. She never saw it coming. But the question we're left with is this: should knowingly infecting someone be treated as attempted murder? What would you do if you found out your partner gave you HIV on purpose? Comment your thoughts below. And if you think this story was shocking, wait until you hear what one husband did to protect his double life. Subscribe and turn on notifications. True stories, real crimes, every day.